So I'm going to begin every EFT session with this exact footage because it'll be easier for me to separately record the audio. So this introduction is just going to be what the tapping points are, how to use them with the recording that will come immediately after this, and we'll just do a little bit of just getting into our bodies, just a small meditation to get us into that nice ventral state. But if you're unfamiliar, the tapping points, we're going to be using the crown. And when you tap, you're tapping with a decent amount of pressure, but you're not poking. You're probably wanting to hit the same spot like 7 to 14 times before moving to the next, but you don't actually have to count. It's just to give you a feel for how long you'll be at one point. And typically, sentence by sentence or line by line, you'll be moving down the points. So, we go crown, then the third eye, then right at the side of the eye, then there's a point here, and this one should be pretty easy to find if you're hitting it right. At least for me, there was a lot of tension when I started doing this here, and you could sort of feel it ripple out. So this one was really an important meridian for me. The next is the philtrum, which is this area between the upper lip and the nose. And then the next one is like just above the chin, just below the lower lip. Beyond that, you'll be tapping on the chest, pretty much hovering around the collarbones. And if that's all you want to do and then come back to here, that's fine. There are also two, like your ribs stop here, your pecs stop here, or breasts, and then this area of ribs right on the top, that's another meridian point that we can use. There's also about it's hard to describe exactly where this is. It's like in line with your sternum, but to the side, and that's of course both. And beyond that, you can tap right here at the wrist where you have the joint. You can do the karate chop point here. Then, I'll go through the fingers as well. But you'd be tapping sort of toward the corner of your thumbnail, then toward the corner of your index, toward the corner of the nail on your middle, and the meridian on the ring finger is actually on the other side, so you would switch from going top down to going bottom up, again at the corner of the nail. And with the pinky, you would go back to top down, doing the same thing. But those aren't needed. The face is just the most important. But, again, you will, while tapping, you'll sort of feel natural points. Sorry, there's a road there, and I don't know how noisy that truck is going to be to the camera. But there will be a natural point getting into this where you'll just know after completing a thought to sort of move to the next. But that's the introduction to the tapping. Uh, the recordings will just be stating certain emotions or psychological concepts, and you're just sort of tapping through each idea one point at a time and just moving through it. And at any point, if something I say in the recording doesn't match up or align with anything that you struggle with, but and you don't want to say it, you can fill in the blank with something that is sort of fitting to the idea that we're tapping through that does apply to you specifically. And you don't have to speak out loud, but I would suggest at least like breathing out the words as if you were going to enunciate them, at the very least. So let's just begin by taking a deep breath in through the diaphragm. And just hold it at the top for a moment. And slowly exhale. Again. Exhale. And just sink into your body. I just want to feel the air on your skin. If there's any heat, any cool breeze, any sunshine that's easily noticeable on your skin. And we'll take another slow, deep breath in. And I want you to feel the expansion of your diaphragm and into your lungs. And then hold it for a few seconds. And as you slowly exhale, I just want you to feel the release that comes with that. Notice the sense of gravity, the feeling of your muscles being pulled down. Just notice how grounding that is, how cozy. Can you feel your heartbeat at all? How fresh is the air that you breathe? And now we'll begin tapping. Let's start by just taking in a deep breath, holding it, and release. Now let's begin tapping. Today, I am here to acknowledge that when life gets difficult, I cling to hope. And I understand that hope allows me to feel safety in the future. And so I want to thank hope for its part in making difficult times more bearable. But I am also aware that some of these hopes are false refuges or myths I cannot prove. So, I'm here today to explore the myths and toxic hopes I've used. And with love, hold myself through the discomfort I may feel. I understand and acknowledge that if discomfort and grief are the costs of disillusionment, I am willing to pay that cost to be free of my illusions. Just taking a deep breath and feel it. And as you let it go, just feel your body. Just be with it. The temperature. The tension. Do you feel your heartbeat? Let's continue. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed by life's difficulties. I often find comfort in narratives and explanations to feel more safe. I see that a frightened part of me wanted the world to be simpler, to soothe my worried mind. I am not wrong to seek safety. And I will hold myself in love and acceptance throughout this process. Notice your breath. When something painful happens in life, sometimes I try to self-soothe with the myth, everything happens for a reason. I find solace in this idea, because if there's a larger story at play, where everything turns out right in the end, I would feel more secure in my reality. I want to hold and accept the parts of myself that feel unsafe. I am here to comfort and love the frightened inner child still within me. Take in a deep breath. Hold it. Slowly release it. If I admitted to myself that there isn't reason behind everything, I would have to reconcile the fact that sometimes harmful, cruel, or reckless things happen without purpose. And that would make me feel that I exist in a chaotic and dangerous reality. And I want to be here to hold those feelings of being threatened by this universe with love and acceptance. At times I prefer a narrative where there is some divine or cosmic order to this reality. That preference makes me feel safer. But I also know what I prefer is not necessarily what is true. I want to thank myself for trying to find comfort and hope, even when toxic. I was doing the best I could with the limited knowledge that I had. But I am wiser now, and I know how to care for myself through discomfort. And when these comforting myths shatter, I will softly touch and mend the wounds caused by that fracture. I want to be disillusioned. I want to know what's true. I will practice forgiveness for myself. I know these myths resonated with me because I wanted to feel safe. I thank my body and mind for seeking safety. I embrace the courage to walk away from the myth that everything happens for a reason. Because this myth closes my heart to compassion, and that is not who I want to be. If everything happens for a reason, there's a preemptive justification to every horrendous act of violence, for every natural disaster. I know I found refuge in this myth to feel safe, and I acknowledge the validity of that. But I also acknowledge that this myth is harmful, because it dismisses tragedies as something necessary for some unknown reason. I do not want to dismiss child abuse as necessary for growth or some unknown reason. I do not want to dismiss the lives lost in mass shootings as necessary for some unknown reason. I do not want to dismiss the early death of a loved one as necessary for some unknown reason. I do not want to dismiss families displaced by a tsunami as necessary for some unknown reason. Instead, I want to be here, to hold myself in the sadness that sometimes things happen and there's no greater purpose to it. Check in with your body. How do you feel? Notice your breath. Let's continue tapping. I acknowledge that horrible things happen to people, and it's not their fault. I acknowledge that hurtful things happened to me that weren't my fault. I will no longer numb the pain of this with toxic hope. I will no longer make justifications for violations of autonomy and self-ownership by claiming it's part of some greater story. I release this coping mechanism because some things happen for no reason. I can feel in myself a resistance to this idea because I want my world to be a safer one. But I am here to be with that frightened inner child who feels unsafe. I want that child to know that I will be the stillness they need in turbulent times. Take in a deep breath. Hold it. Release it slowly. I am here to be a healing force in my own life, and I am learning more about my wounds and how to more effectively heal them. I love and accept myself as unconditionally as I can. I know that this is the kind of love my inner child has been starving for throughout my life. And I understand that loving me is no one else's responsibility. It is my responsibility to care for my body and mind. It is my responsibility to fully hear the hurt of my inner child and love that kid the way they needed to be loved. Now just notice, how does it feel to be you in this moment? How does your breath feel? Can you sense your heartbeat in your chest, neck, fingers? Notice the colors that surround you. Notice the way light interacts with your environment. Place a palm on your heart as a symbolic act of being with the ache, the grief. A symbolic act of being willing to descend into the darkness, to be with the broken heart where shadow work must be done. Thank you for coming here today to work with yourself for truth and for the love of your inner child. Have a good day.